There once was a stallion who lived in a house, though it was more of a how or maybe an ouse, for his little old home was not one bit complete. 'Twas only he that lived on Halfway Street. The building itself, as one would see, wasn't nearly as finished as he may decree. It had only 3 walls halfway around, and to the one part was a roof bound. His living room sat right in plain sight of any passers-by on any given night. His bedroom was lofted just 1 floor high, giving a view of the wonderful sky. On the inside wall there rested a clock, with only 6 numbers. It ticked but not talk. His bed halfway built, in the corner snug, sat halfway made on a threadbare rug. The kitchen was chilly, cold as ice, having half of a fridge paid its own price. Finding the bathroom was no simple task. Trying to use it, don't even ask. Seeing this house, as one can easily tell, things became interesting when the rain fell. But despite these setbacks, the stallion tread up Halfway Street towards his unfinished homestead. To the sun overhead the stallion did look, then back to the ground his head he shook. "'Tis almost time," he said, "methinks, to get to bed and get 20 winks." He stepped off the road, which was halfway done, and wiped his forehead in the heat of the sun. Across the yard that grew halfway, he walked to where his key did stay. He lifted the mat that said only "come," and fitted the key, and entered his home. Climbing the stairs, every other he did, and into his room the stallion slid. He looked in the mirror, cut straight down the middle, at the black and white mane that sat all a twiddle. He glanced at his coat, where 2 halves stood true, the strongest of hues, steel gray and blue. Closer he looked, where eye bags did sit, under blue, under green. He threw a great fit. "Oh, what a morn, what a work, what a day! The rest of it I shall sleep half the way." Onto his bed the stallion then rolled. He looked at the sun, who looked back bold. A face he did make, and then he did pout. He yelled at the sun, "Turn your light out." The sun did not a thing to comply. It merely sat in its spot in the sky. With a discontented grumble and an audible huff, the stallion rolled over. He had had quite enough. Half of a bed at his side it was not, and a hole in his heart grew at the thought. A mare full of love was all he did want, and for all his own to act as a font. With half of a sigh to half slumber he fell. Just how he did so, one couldn't quite tell. Whatever he dreamed, he only half dreamt, for just half a day he had primped. The sun was soon gone, to the west it had slidden, the moon in its place, its power was now hidden. He woke in the morn to a brand new day. He woke once again to work it halfway. He brushed half his teeth and gave half a grin. Out the door, down the road, his day did begin. The sky was bright blue, and the birds were a chatter. What a fine day, there is nothing the matter. In the fields to his left many foals did play, but something caught his eye, and he stopped all the way. Amongst all the foals that scimpered and scampered stood a fair mare, whose mane was quite pampered, all the shades of true gold. Her coat truly seemed, and in the warm sun violet eyes fully gleamed. He held his breath, not knowing what to do. Where'd she come from? He had not a clue. He thought of his bed, then the hole in his heart. Then with a stroll towards the mare did he start. Crossing the field he felt very meek, but courage returned and bade him to speak. "My fair maiden, may I have a word? Allow me to speak. Don't think me absurd." She stopped in her tracks and looked his way. Her beauty did steal his words to say. Lost in trance, he gave her a smile. Toothy and silly, he stood there a while. Shaking his head, he snapped from her spell. He spoke from the heart, and he spoke quite well. "A form ne'er so grace, nor beauty so rare, straight from my chest my heart it did snare. And ne'er from yours I do desire to entwine you with love, your heart to acquire." "How now, fair maiden, what do you say? May I try just once today?" His little heart pittered, and he hoped that hers pattered, but one look in her eyes, and his dreams were shattered. She glanced at his coat, and then at his mane, then at his eyes, with a look of disdain. "What happened to you?" the pretty mare inquired. "The style is silly, it's completely expired." "I know not what you mean," discoursed sir, did he said. She pointed to the curls on top of his head. You have a mane of some black and also some white. How are you able to sleep at night? Your wacky coat is all dark blue and steel gray. It would easily drive any pony away. Don't think me rude, don't think me mean, but isn't it funny, only one eye of green? I'm sorry, sir, stallion. You have spoken your word. I've allowed you to speak, and I think you absurd. With nay but a smile she returned on a whim, dashing his hopes, his chances more slim. He returned to his house, fumes from his ears. It drove him quite mad, nearly drove him to tears. Silly, absurd, that's what she called me. I'll change how I look, I'll show her, she'll see. He galloped to the store and bought some red paint. At such brilliant crimson any mare would sure faint. His mane he did dye the sleekest of black, a masterful plan, immune to all flack. The optometrist sold him but one single lens, green, to complement the other two trends. Into his mirror the stallion did glance. Will she reject me now? Ha! Not a chance. He went to the field to find her again. Boldly he approached and gave her a grin. My fair maiden, may I have a word? Allow me to speak. Don't think me absurd. My hair is all black. 'Tis no longer white. 'Tis no more a threat in the middle of the night. Wacky no more is my coat, blue and gray. 'Twill no longer drive any pony away. I don't think you rude, I don't think you mean, for you'll change your mind with two eyes of green. Hush now, fair maiden, what do you say? May I try once more today? The beautiful mare, after a glance, said, All right, good sir, I'll give you a chance. His face in a whirl, by a grin it was swept, but calm he did stay, his composure was kept. My house is just there, 'tis not a great hike. 'Tis quite a fine place that I think you will like. Up halfway street the pair of them strode, up halfway street towards his humble abode. Crossing the yard, he opened the door, but she gave him a look as if hoping for more. Oh, my sir stallion, you call this a house? This is more like a how, or maybe an ouse. Only 3 walls, round is your little homestead, and into only one part is there a roof overhead. Your living room here is right in plain view of the street that you're on, a problem to few. Your bedroom does hang just 1 floor above. 'Tis too close to death with one simple shove. If I lived in this place my work would come knocking, for I would not wake to a clock that's not talking. Your bed, as it seems, is a scare, I confess, halfway built, halfway made. 'Tis quite a mess. Your kitchen is cold, chills right to the bone. Not half of a fridge would I ever own. The bathroom is hidden, it is, try to find. The thought of using it is, never mind. I'm sorry, Sir Stallion, you have spoken your word. I've allowed you to speak, and I think you absurd. She then turned to leave, bidding a good day. But try as he might, he had nothing to say. He sat there and thought. He started to stew. A light bulb went off, and he knew what to do. He set straight to work, and he worked in a flurry. He worked with much speed. He was in quite a hurry. In all of his haste he made lots of noise, but at the end of it all he stood with quite poise. Unto his home the stallion did glance. Will she reject me now? Ha, not a chance. He went to the field to find her again, boldly approached and gave her a grin. My fair maiden, may I have a word? Allow me to speak, don't think me absurd. Not an hour ago I showed you my house, but you called not only a how, but also an ouse. Come here with me, just turn your fair head. Look, you shall see a roof overhead. My living room there, once in plain view. Who can see from the street? Please name a few. My bedroom that's still just 1 floor above is safe for a mare from one simple shove. Your work here would no longer come knocking, for my clock it did tick and now is also talking. As scared did you say was my bed? Please confess. Fully built, fully made, 'tis no longer a mess. The kitchen that once chilled right to the bone, no more, no less, 1 whole fridge does it own. My bathroom that hid, that was so hard to find, your queries on usage pay never mind. How now, fair maiden, what you say? May I try once more today? The beautiful mare, after a glance, said, All right, good sir, I'll give you a chance. A wonderful day they spent in town, but of the while the mare wore a frown. What is the matter? The stallion asked, with a look on his face of pure flabbergast. I'm sorry, Sir Stallion, I'm not sure what to say. There's something still wrong. For an answer I pray. You look like You changed how you look, and your house is now true, but what you become, it just isn't you. A soft apology escaped the fair mare, and the stallion sat stunned, full of despair. He stumbled on home to his fully built house, and changed it all the way back to a house or an house. He walked all the way black. He washed all the black right out of his mane, then all the crimson out of his frame. He removed the green lens, bidding symmetry farewell, and then with a sigh into deep depression he fell. He went for a walk in the mid of the day, and during his walk by the field he stray. "Oh, my Sir Stallion, are you all right? That look on your face, it gives such a fright." He raised up his head and saw the fair mare. With a sorrowful guilt he simply must share. "I'm sorry, fair maiden, for wasting your time. I see I'm not good enough. To try was a crime." He lowered his head and walked gloomily by. At such great sadness she nearly did cry. "You did all that just to express all that you felt. You only tried to impress. With you nothing's wrong. Theirs is nothing silly. By the age that I've acted was that of a filly. After all this time I can plainly see, not you, 'twas I. The absurd one was me." Sorrowfully and sadly she looked to the ground, then slowly her eyes to his came around. Shyly a smile formed on her face, and after the smile a laugh gave it chase. "This trial I now know isn't your fault, and strongly do I persistently exalt. How now, Sir Stallion, what do you say? May I try just once today?" The rest of that day, till it was when the sun set, they laughed and they played, like best friends long met. He acted himself, no facade did he play, and with not but a smile at his side did she stay. And then on from hers, as he so desired, he intertwined her with love, her heart he acquired. His halfway built home is still on that street, 'tis a house meant for two, and his house is complete.